So that's what they sell is freedom. They sell less worry. We help people to have less worry about their business and to focus on the things that are important, not I provide bookkeeping services.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's guest is the founder of Score More Sales, which helps companies grow revenues through strategic sales efforts using lessons from her 20 years in sales and leadership roles. I'm super excited because I think this is going to be an amazing episode to help all of you boost your sales and go out there and get great clients. So I'd like to welcome Lori Richardson to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. Welcome.
Hi, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's great to have you. And, we haven't really done a really heavily focused podcast episode on sales. So this is going to be great. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
So first off, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become a thought leader in selling?
Ooh, thought leader. Sounds very important. I have a passion for sales. I believe that, nothing happens till somebody sells something. And there are a lot of good companies that, because they don't have great sales efforts, they don't do well. And it just hit me over time that it's just so critically important to be able to help people really understand not just the skills, but the whole environment around selling and what's necessary. And I love seeing the changes happen with companies when they adopt the best practices.
That's great. And you've been at this a while.
Yeah.
Where did you get started in sales?
I started in a family-run business, actually, and when I grew up, I was in my early 20s, I became a teacher, and then I also became a single mom, so kind of one boom, boom after the other, and I realized that I couldn't support my family on my teacher's salary, so I went back to my roots. I knew how to sell, and I got into technology sales at a time when it was really booming, and so from there, I just sold lots and lots and lots of things and worked for different companies and got into leadership. And then I had a point where I didn't really want to sell anymore. I didn't really want to be a sales manager. So I thought maybe I'll just help other people sell. And that's how Score More Sales started about 15 years ago.
Okay, very good. And would you say that, you went into it in kind of an interesting way? Did you already have innate selling skills?
Well, I worked for my grandmother who had a women's apparel store, and I grew up in it. It was higher end items. So I learned about selling value without really being taught, formally about it. I learned about not having to discount, and I learned about selling services at a very young age. So I think it was just kind of ingrained in me, and whatever I had innately kind of it combined for a sales cocktail, if you will. And it all mixed together well, and it just came second nature to me. So yeah, I intentionally went into sales, which is not common for a lot of people.
That's right. But I can see how those early days would have been very valuable to you to learn all of the foundation, I guess you could say, of a certain way of selling, which probably a lot of people don't think about and don't understand, and probably is the root of some of the problems people have with selling. You learn that at an early age.
Right. And if you're a bookkeeper, say, or some other services provider, you don't necessarily think at the very beginning, hey, I have to be a salesperson too. So it's just something that I've found a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners don't think about. And some don't want to do that. But you certainly have to know enough to, if you can't sell, find someone else that can help you do it. And sometimes that's the best solution for people who just opposed to the idea. I think it's simple to learn how to sell. I don't think everyone necessarily might like it or might feel overly comfortable. But I think when you learn the basics, it can get better and easier over time.
So that's interesting. It's simple to sell, but yet people are not necessarily looking forward to doing it or wanting to go out and have that experience. Why do you think that is?
I think that sales has a bad name, a bad rap from, different movies we've seen and, certain car shopping experiences. But when you think about the fact that sales is simply taking your services, your ideas, your concepts, and your products and turning them into money. That's all it is. It doesn't have a lot of baggage. It's just a way of exchanging what you do into dollars. And since you need those dollars to shop and provide for your family, it's an admirable thing to be able to know how to do this. And it helps, the better you are at it, the more you can help your community, the more you can help have employees, the more you can help make everything better. So I think it's a very admirable aspect of a small business owner's set of jobs that we have.
I agree. And what I've seen working with, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of bookkeepers, and you're bang on around what you're saying around the challenge they face and the struggles that they go through. But once they get the simple things in place, it does change their life. It becomes a lot easier. And they focus on new things, which is growing their business and looking forward to growing their business. So I'm excited to get into some of this. So
yeah, and it's not trickery, it's conversations. It's simply having conversations.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that, conversations. What would you say, we've got an audience here that's probably on the edge of their seat and they're thinking, I don't know if I want to listen to this podcast because I don't want to sell. But how are we going to get them to, after this episode, going out there and going, hey, let's take this on. Let's do something new. Where should we start?
Well, I think you go to the beginning where you think about the fact that everyone does sell. We sell when we want to go on a trip and our spouse or significant other may or may not want to go to that place. We'll work to sell them on the idea. And kids sell us all the time. You have a little one.
That's right.
As they get older, it's all about why, but why, but why. And they tug at your heartstrings and you make emotional decisions, which is how we all buy, by the way. And so, there's skills that we need anyway. And so if you just think about the foundation of just understanding that this is a part of life and it's not a bad thing, and that it's very, like I said, it's an admirable thing to be able to help people move forward. So in the case of working in a services-based business, like your listeners are, it's helping people to have a better life through better financial planning and organization and understanding. That's a big deal. If you can help the people in your community to have a better handle on their expenses and their all the things that you do, it makes a better life for people. And that's a big thing that I think we can all get behind.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right around the power of what it is that our audience delivers. If their customers get these things right, their lives will change financially. And so how do they because they're not typically selling from that. They're just selling a service. It's like, I do this.
Right.
versus this is where I can take you.
Yeah, or helping people with freedom. I mean, I think about when we used to do our bookkeeping in-house, and it was a nightmare. There's always something coming up, and somebody had to, there was just a lot of consternation and frustration. And I remember the day that we found a company to help us on the outside that they do bookkeeping. They also do our taxes. And I mean, it's one of the best decisions I ever made as a small business owner. And I never worry about that area of our business.
It's heaven. When the bookkeeping gets off your shoulders, it's heaven.
It changed our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great for our audience to hear that from somebody who's gone through that experience.
That's what they sell is freedom. They sell less worry. We help people to have less worry about their business and to focus on the things that are important, not I provide bookkeeping services.
Yes. So let's go through, you mentioned having these conversations, and if a listener right now is thinking, okay, well, I want to take this on, the first thing people need is people to speak with. So how do we get them out there in front of these people to actually have a sales conversation?
So are we talking local clients?
It's going to be mostly local.
Yeah. Then you get out into the community. You go to the chambers and the business events, or you start your own. That's another thing that I like to talk to people about, because you become kind of the hub rather than the spokes when you find people that, here's an idea, find people that can refer you customers, clients. So if I'm a bookkeeper, anyone involved in business banking, a banker would be a really good referrer. A marketing person would be a really good referrer. A sales expert like me would be a good referrer. People that talk to companies all the time, and you would be a good referrer for them. And you start meeting and you talk. You can do this virtually as well. But you're the hub, and you're not at an event that has little to do with you or very few potential customers there. You want to be involved with things where, it's a really good use of your time and you can help others in the same way. It's about serving others, and through serving others, helping them find good fits for companies to work with them. It just boomerangs back to you.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's, the accountants, the business bankers that you said, commercial bankers. In fact, we've got a whole list that we have. I'll make it available. If you go to our website, we'll make that list available just to give you some ideas. But I love what you're saying about creating your own group and becoming the hub versus the spoke, and being able to drive that. Because one of the things that we do hear about is a lot of people complain about the groups that are out there. They go there and they don't, it's their social, they're not
for
really.
For good reason. Yeah.
Right.
A lot of wasted time in a lot of the groups, not all, but a lot.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that we constantly say is you want to date groups before you get married to groups, because they're not all the same. And the key component, as you alluded to, was the people in that group. They need to be people that can and will refer business to you. And the whole point is to build relationships. So we get them out there. You have to be out in front of people and building relationships before you can have a sales conversation. So let's say that we're out there now and we're working with, we met some people. How can we transform and really make the sales conversation easy for them?
I think the best place to start is to learn about other people who happen to be business owners. So I would say, hey, Michael, tell me about your business. What do you like? When did you start it? What do you like about it? How does it work for you? Is it challenging? What's the best reward? And not just interrogate them, but ask them questions that, would actually help me better understand who you are as a business owner. And over time, I'm going to learn about what some of your frustrations are. And if they say, you know what, we have this amazing tax and bookkeeping service, and my brother-in-law runs it, and it's so cool, then I know they're probably not going to be my best prospect, but I can still build a relationship. I can still refer them business. They can refer me business. And so you don't just stop, because I've seen that. If you've ever been to an event where people have name tags and they ask, they don't know how to network, and they come up to you and they see what you do, and then they go, oh, and then they just kind of move on. It's like, you're not just looking for one thing like customers. Look for interesting people, because my motto is that if you meet interesting people, you'll learn interesting things. And maybe I'll get a tip about something going on in the community. Maybe it's something about a group that maybe I'm helping in another way. And so it's not just about, are you a customer? Are you a customer? Are you a potential customer? It's really about building relationships and learning about people. And you get good at that. Even if you're an introvert, you can do it.
I love it. Some great questions to ask. You build a relationship, you get an understanding of where they're at, where they're going. So now, where do we take it from there? I think, when I'm listening to you speak, I'm thinking one of the challenges that people have is moving people through the cycle of sales. So let's talk about the cycle of sales. Because there is a process, and I would love to hear what your process is of different stages, right? It's like if we went and looked at anybody's relationship from meeting to marriage, there's like all these different steps that people would take to actually get there. And I think it's Ryan Dice had a video where he talked about if you missed one of those steps, it would get creepy really quickly. I love that story, right? It's like there's all these really important steps to follow. So let's talk about your steps that you have your clients walk through.
Yeah, well, in the beginning, people are not prospects. They're before that, which I've always called suspects. There might be someone's a business owner. They might be a prospect. I don't know yet. So the first thing I want to do is to learn if someone could be either a prospect or a strategic referrer, which is another critical source of new clients. And there are people in my community who are not a client. They're not a potential client or a potential prospect, but they have referred me clients on a regular basis. So I need to follow up with those people as well. But first it goes from suspect to prospect, and then it's a matter of having conversations with people to find out a little more about their goals and interests. So in my case, if someone says, we have a big sales team, we have a lot of sales issues, and, I really want to get it sorted out, that's fine, but they really need to be more motivated to do it. Otherwise, they could do it next year, or they could have 10 other things they're trying to do. So you need to understand what their priorities are. And in some cases, you can help people with priorities, like telling them a story about a company like theirs that put your services in place and they had no idea that it would actually free up, maybe a few hours of time every month for them. And now they're using that time to volunteer in the community, something like that. So that's not a hard sell. That's just sharing a story. So you go, you just kind of move along as it's appropriate, and you don't need to be pushy, but you do need to follow up.
And the follow-up is key. And that's the one that separates the people who can sell and the sales professionals.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about follow-up, because I love where we've brought everybody here. We've got like a little bit of a roadmap. We've suspect, are they going to be a strategic partner or prospect? And now we've got this conversation to get to the real high priorities of what people need. And I love this whole invention of priorities by telling a story around how, hey, this maybe should be one of your priorities. Love that.
Yeah.
But follow-up, you mentioned it a couple of times. It's very important, but I don't think people do it that well. What's the secret behind follow-up?
Well, for me, I think the key is to be I need to follow up with a number of people, but I need to be personalized. So I'm not going to do mass emails like, hey, generic person, whatever. People don't like that. But let's say I went to a holiday mixer and I met, 7 or 8 interesting people who are all business owners. So this month, I'm going to send them a card. Maybe it's a Happy New Year card, or maybe it's just a nice image of, something, just some blank card. And I'm just going to write, hey, Michael, it was great to meet you last month at the holiday mixer. I'd love to get to know more about your business and see how I may be able to be of support or, be a good referrer for you. Period. My name, my number, can you get together for coffee, or do you want to talk by phone? And that's it, because I'm focusing on them and not on me. So in the beginning, I want to know more about them, because I do. And it's not a trick. It's about thinking about abundance, and that if you can add value to other people's lives, it will come back tenfold.
That's fantastic. I love it. And now sending cards, it's something that I don't think a lot of people do. It's one of these lost special things. When you get a card in the mail, it's actually gone from, mail was like an abundance, you get all this mail, but a personally written or a personalized card in the mail is unique today.
Yeah. And people open them up. I know that I always see the letters and the checks, before the bills.
That's right.
Any cards kind of go to the top. And I'm actually in the process I make my own New Year's cards every year. And the way I do it is with, I have an image. So a designer actually designs an image, but I print them out like photos. Actually go to Costco and have them done for very inexpensively. And then we put them onto a card and a plain card, and write a message in it and then send them out. And it's very inexpensive. It's unique because my message, mine happens to say, I say things like kick butt, take names, 2017, score more sales. So it's something that someone's not going to throw away. They're going to be like, oh yeah, maybe it's motivational or, inspirational in some way, and they'll hang on to it and they'll remember me. And so it's important to think of ways that you can do that to be memorable and to stay on someone's desk.
Yeah, I love that concept of the photos and making it personalized. It's rare that they're going to throw that away. It was another tip someone gave to me recently around sending out cards that people wouldn't necessarily throw away. Like if you send a holiday card right at the holiday, it's like, well, they're packing up in 2 weeks. If you send it in November, they're going to put it on their shelf for a couple of weeks, right? It's going to be there and hanging around. So there's a little bit of thought that goes into these things. But I think at the bare minimum, what you're saying about the follow-up, something specific that is personalized, and the call to action, the next step is, can we meet?
Yeah.
So now we've met, where they've accepted this, and if we've gone this far and we've done this, there's a high likelihood that they're going to have a meeting booked because this stuff works, right?
Yeah.
So we've got this meeting. How does this meeting need to flow?
I still take it from continuing to learn about the other person and getting a few questions answered. So at the meeting that I have, I want to walk away with an understanding of whether they have used services like I offer, whether they do use services that I offer right now, what their thoughts are, kind of a little bit about who their world is. Who do they know? Are they connected to others through other associations and organizations? Because even, that's a win too. If I go into it not just looking for a new customer, I'm just looking to further my relationship with them, see how I can help them, find areas they're interested in. Who do they support? Are there any charities in the community they like? Maybe it's something I support too. And so again, basically I'm just trying to get more understanding, but I would certainly say hey, Michael, do you use bookkeeping services right now? And, who have you used, or how do you handle that, so that I can get some specific information? It's not it's a simple answer. You can say, yeah, I do. No, I don't really want to think about that right now. And then just move on. But typically you can get some really good information.
Absolutely.
So think about the things that you want to know in advance, and then make sure that you ask those questions. And if I forgot, I can always call you after we met and say, hey, I forgot to ask this one thing. And it's totally appropriate. So you're just, again, if you take the baggage out that you're trying to sell them, and that you're simply trying to learn more about them, because you don't even know yet if they are a potential client for you. So that's the process. Think of yourself as a detective and not a salesperson.
I like that. So we're asking questions, we're building further rapport, really understanding what the challenges are. Like, what would you say the next step is? I'm not sure where you think the step is, but I know there's one that I see so many making the mistake of, which is asking for business, asking for that next step, asking for something to get started. So how do you see that progressing to that stage?
Well, when you're working with services like all of your listeners are, I think a great way to move things forward is to, again, ask them, what they're doing now. If they say no, and I'm having a lot of trouble, or it's really hard, it's frustrating, the next thing that I would say is, would you like some help with that? It's a very simple question. Again, it's a yes or a no, or I'm not sure. And I can say, well, if you're not sure, what are some of your, what are you thinking? What are your do you have some hesitations about it? Or, if you have a special offering that maybe you're not discounting your fees, but if people are signing up in Q1 that, there's an additional thing, bonus service or something that you can do with them, then you can let them know that, hey, I'm having this special promotion, and, I'd love for you to try us out and see what you think. Again, it's very low risk. The worst thing they can do is say, no, I don't really want to do that right now. Great. It's no big deal. We're going to part friends, and maybe they'll refer us business. Maybe I can refer them business still.
Beautiful. I'll mention Debbie Roberts, who's my business partner and co-founder of Pure Bookkeeping, but as well co-author of E-Myth Bookkeeper. What she would use was called the health check. And so at this stage, it would be, I love how you've just made that so simple. Would you like some help with that? Yeah. And so you've got this closed question that say yes or no. If they say yes, then there's this introduction. And where this could fit in really brilliantly is, let me do a health check. And the health check is that you go in, you check through, it's like this 34-point inspection for your car at the garage, right? But that is a very soft next step, to go in and just have a look around the place and see where there might be some burning fires or something like that. So that could be a great tool to use right at this stage.
Right. And another thing to keep in touch with people is if you find an article in the newspaper about them, they won an award or they added employees or something, send them a note. You can email a note and attach the link to the article and say, hey, congratulations, I saw that, you were mentioned. Or maybe they're in Facebook. I think Facebook is a great way to connect with customers who are local. And especially if you're a service provider, that can be a really, really, really great way to go.
Yes, absolutely. So following up, let's say that we're at the end of the call, and so there's going to be either you're going to work with them or you're not going to work with them, and it's going to be then go into like a nurturing or follow-up, as you're saying. What else do you see as being important to this whole sales process?
I think listening is important, and hearing, listening for clues. If they sound very rushed, it may not be a good time to talk. And so to check with them about that, is this still a good time You sounds kind of hectic. Is everything okay? Or sounds kind of hectic. Is this still a good time to talk? And try to let them know that, it's a human conversation. It's not just get down to business and talk. So be listening for clues, and then, you want to forward the conversation on in some manner. Like, well, perhaps, it sounds like you're in good shape for now. Do you mind if I check in with you in 6 months? Or, if I see anyone that I think might use your services, do you mind if I send them your way? There's some next action that you put in your CRM system, and you keep track so that you don't forget about these folks.
Beautiful. We've given a ton of stuff, which I think is going to be very helpful. And you started to allude to something that I think brought up in my mind, which is the psychology of selling from the person who's doing the selling. So our listeners are there. What have you seen around people's mindsets that's prevented them from asking for the business, or prevented them from doing this kind of follow-up, or asking these maybe difficult questions? What do you see has been a roadblock for people?
When I worked with entrepreneurs, and I don't currently, I saw as small business owners, which I work with mid-sized companies now, but what I noticed was people would sometimes take things personally, take it as a personal rejection. And when you can just flip a switch in your head that says, I'm presenting my company's services, not me personally. And, they may or may not want to work with my company's services for different reasons, and they're all okay. And that there's a big abundant world out there with many more people to talk to if the person I talk to today doesn't think we're a good fit. I'd like to learn something from that conversation. I would even ask them if it seems like, if I think they'd be really great to work with, and for some reason they don't want to, I'd like to give it a couple months, and then I'd like to call them again and say, can I just ask you a question? I'm always working to improve, and I was curious to know why, you didn't feel comfortable moving ahead working with us when we talked before, and get some feedback. Now, not everyone is going to be comfortable doing that, but that's how you learn and grow, is you stretch yourself a little bit. And again, it's about feedback that's going to help me do a better, easier job next time.
It's great. And, I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking we could probably take this on for a lot longer, but we try and keep them around 30 minutes. So this has been fantastic. And I'd love to have you share anything that you would like to share about your company, or how people can get more from your business or learn more about your business, Score More Sales. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as I mentioned, I work with mid-sized companies that have sales teams of at least, usually a half a dozen people or more. But the audience may know of companies like that, and I'd love any kind of referrals. But I do also have a blog at scoremoresales.com, and I always try to post ideas and, tips and strategies for the common things that come up in selling and leading salespeople. So I would encourage them to visit the blog, and if I can be of any support, they're welcome to reach out to me that way.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Well, I will say this. This has been a fantastic interview, and I'm going to do a bunch of things for the listeners. So here's what we're going to do. Number one, I'm going to get this episode transcribed. We don't transcribe all of the episodes, but this one, there's so many great things that you've talked about today that I think it'd be valuable to have a transcription. So we'll make that available on our website. As well, I'm going to break it down here because I love how you've taken us through this very simple step-by-step process on how to move somebody through a sales cycle. And this is your version of that. So we'll make that available. And it'll include some of the questions that you've brought up, what people can ask. So we're going to arm everybody that's listening right now with a whole bunch of great helping tools to make selling easier, make your life better when you're out there selling, and actually get you excited about going out there and networking and building and growing your business. So thank you so much, Lori. This has been awesome. I've loved it. I know our audience is going to love it, and I can't wait to put it out there.
Thank you, Michael. It's my pleasure, and I hope everyone keeps selling.
Yes. Well, that wraps another episode. Thank you for listening. As well as I mentioned, all of these resources and finding out more about Lori, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com and go to this specific episode to find out how you can download all of these great resources as well. Please subscribe to our show on iTunes. And we'd love for you to leave us a review. Let us know what you think. Give us information on what you'd like to hear or see in the future. And until then, we'll say goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.